The call came from Mark Chin, a real estate attorney I'd never heard of. Mr. Harrison? I represent the Kowalski family. They're under contract for a mountain property at 4847 Ridgeline Drive. Your property. Your father represented himself as the owner. I need to understand what's happening here before I advise my clients whether to pursue fraud charges. I was in Denver for a conference, 300 miles from the cabin I'd bought 4 years ago with my software consulting income. The cabin Dad apparently thought he could sell. My father did what? Listed it 19 days ago. Full listing on Zillow, Realtor.com, the OS. Professional photos, stage descriptions, open houses every Sunday. My clients made an offer. $695,000 cash 7-day close. Your father accepted yesterday. We're in escrow. Then my title company pulled the actual deed. The hotel room tilted. The deed showing my name. Only my name. Correct. Sole owner since December 2019. No co-signers, no trust structures, nothing. Which means your father committed real estate fraud, and his realtor friend Gregory Walsh facilitated it without basic verification. My clients want blood. The real estate board will be very interested. And depending on what your father signed, we're potentially looking at criminal charges. I sat on the hotel bed. Outside, downtown Denver sparkled in afternoon sun. How many showings? 17. Your father conducted them personally, represented himself as owner, signed disclosure documents as legal seller. Walsh never requested ownership proof. Never ran a preliminary title check. Professional negligence so egregious it's almost impressive. What happens now? My clients could sue for substantial damages. Inspection costs, appraisal fees, earnest money, emotional distress. Your father and Walsh are legally exposed on multiple fronts. I'm required to report this to the real estate board regardless. But I wanted to speak with the actual owner first. I thought about Dad's comment last month. That cabin sits empty. Waste of perfectly good property. I thought he meant I should visit more. I'd been spectacularly wrong. Give me 48 hours, I said. I need to consult an attorney. I hired Sarah Brennan, a real estate attorney in Boulder. She reviewed the listing, signed disclosures, purchase agreement and Dad's representations within 6 hours. Your father signed seller disclosure documents under penalty of perjury, Sarah explained. Represented clear title, no liens, legal authority to sell. All provably false. The realtor, Gregory Walsh, had a professional duty to verify ownership before listing. He didn't. This is textbook fraud with professional negligence. What did my father collect? $15,000 in earnest money, currently held in escrow. I pulled his email correspondence with Walsh through discovery requests. They discussed commission splits. Walsh expected $40,800 on the $680,000 sale. Your father thought he'd net approximately $620,000 after closing costs and fees. I'd purchased the cabin for $340,000 4 years ago. Mountain property values had climbed steadily. Dad saw retirement funding where I saw sanctuary. Did he think it was family property? Worse. He knew it wasn't. His emails reference getting David on board after closing, and presenting him with the accomplished deal. He planned to forge your signature on transfer documents if necessary. This wasn't confusion. This was calculated. The room went silent except for traffic noise filtering through the window. What are my options? Full prosecution, criminal fraud charges, forgery, conspiracy if we prove Walsh knew. Civil suits for damages, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Or we handle this with strategic pressure. Consequences without complete destruction. Your decision entirely. I thought about family dinners, childhood camping trips to this mountain region before I could afford property. Then I thought about Dad's phrase, getting David on board. I thought about 17 families walking through my home, strangers touching my books, my furniture, my private space while I was working 300 miles away. Something crystallized. I want every document. Everything they signed, everything they said, every email. Sarah requested all materials the next morning. Gregory Walsh's office complied within 4 hours. Once she mentioned real estate board involvement, cooperation became instant. I spent 2 days reading correspondence between Dad and Walsh. Dad, David rarely uses it. Empty 11 months a year. He won't even notice until money's already distributed. Walsh, I'll need ownership documentation for the file before listing. Dad, Greg, it's family property. You've known me 32 years. Trust isn't enough. Walsh, fair point. Listing goes live Tuesday morning. No verification. No title search. 3 decades of friendship apparently substituted for professional standards. Walsh had sent detailed recap emails after each showing. Silicon Valley couple, loved the deck and mountain views. Family from Chicago, concerned about winter road access but very interested. Cash buyer from Austin, ready to close immediately. 17 showings. 17 groups of strangers in my space. The cabin where I'd written code, finished client projects, found silence away from Denver's noise, turned into a real estate showcase without my knowledge or permission. The Kowalskis' earnest money sat frozen in escrow. Dad couldn't provide clear title, so funds couldn't transfer. The buyers had already paid $600 for inspection, $450 for appraisal, and taken 3 days off work for their planned closing. Sarah filed formal complaints with the Colorado Real Estate Board against Walsh. Failure to verify ownership, facilitating fraud through negligent practice, violation of professional standards. The board opened investigation within 72 hours. Then she drafted demand letters. To Dad. Immediate return of all earnest money, full reimbursement to the Kowalskis for expenses, written admission of fraudulent representation, permanent surrender of any claim to the property. To Walsh. Reimbursement to the Kowalskis, withdrawal from this transaction, complete cooperation with board investigation. Dad called 90 minutes after receiving his letter. This is absolutely insane. I was helping the family financially. By committing real estate fraud? It just sits there, David. You barely use it. I use it constantly. I was there 3 weeks ago. You listed it while I was at a work conference. Your mother and I could really use that money. You know retirement isn't cheap these days. There was not family unity. Not shared resources. Retirement funding extracted from my asset through fraud. You forged disclosure documents, Dad. You collected earnest money under false pretenses. You cost the Kowalskis over $1,000 in wasted expenses. Walsh might lose his license. Greg will be fine. We're old friends. This will blow over. Greg facilitated fraud because he trusted you instead of doing his actual job. That's not friendship. That's liability he'll be paying for through increased insurance premiums. Long silence. Then, you'd really press criminal charges? Against your own father. I thought about the ghost ledger, years of items I could invoice if family relationships worked on transactional principles. Dad borrowing my truck and returning it empty 14 times. Family helps family. Mom asking me to skip my college graduation ceremony to help with their garage sale. It's just walking across a stage. Dad promising to feed my dog Max during a business trip, forgetting completely, neighbor finding Max after 2 days. He's fine. Don't be so dramatic. Every incident followed identical structure. Take my resources, dismiss my reaction, frame me as unreasonable for objecting. I'm not pressing charges yet, I said carefully. I'm enforcing legal boundaries. Your choices determine what happens next. The real estate board moved efficiently. Walsh received formal reprimand and $5,000 fine for negligent practice. His professional insurance premiums would increase substantially, likely costing him $15,000 annually for the next 5 years. Every prospective client would now see he'd facilitated fraud through inadequate verification. Dad was required to sign a notarized affidavit admitting fraudulent ownership representation, return the full earnest money amount, and pay the Kowalskis' documented expenses totaling $1,650. The affidavit would be filed with the county clerk, permanent public record. He resisted for 8 days. Sarah mentioned criminal fraud charges involving amounts over $15,000 carried potential jail time even for first-time elderly offenders. He signed within 3 hours. I sent a formal cease and desist letter to my parents, drafted by Sarah, delivered by process server. No access to any property I own. No financial discussions involving my assets. No assumptions about family property rights. Future contact would be documented and could be used in legal proceedings if necessary. Mom called it unnecessarily cruel. He made one mistake. Family is supposed to forgive. Family is supposed to respect legal ownership, I replied. Family doesn't commit fraud and expect forgiveness to erase consequences. She hung up. I didn't call back. 4 months later, I sit on my cabin deck with morning coffee, watching sunrise illuminate the valley in shades of gold and copper. The air smells like pine and Cold Creek water. Inside, my laptop waits. Client code to review, systems to debug, deadlines to meet. The cabin is mine. Legally, practically, permanently mine. The title is clear, the deed recorded, the ownership absolutely undisputed. Dad thought empty meant available. He saw vacancy and called it waste. He never understood that emptiness was precisely the point. Space to think, silence to hear my own thoughts, solitude to create without interruption. I didn't need the cabin filled with family. I needed it protected from them. Walsh lost 5 clients after the board's decision became public record. Dad faces questions at the golf course, awkward conversations at the hardware store. Small mountain towns specialize in gossip. Mom stopped calling after I didn't attend Thanksgiving. My sister texted asking why I was punishing everyone over a simple misunderstanding. I forwarded her the email chain. She hasn't mentioned it since. The Kowalskis found another property and sent a handwritten thank you note for resolving things professionally. They'd considered a lawsuit but appreciated the quick settlement. I changed every lock. Installed a comprehensive security system with cameras, motion sensors and instant phone alerts. Anyone who approaches now, I'll know immediately. The property isn't sitting empty. It's sitting mine. Protected, secure, undisputedly mine. And that distinction makes all the difference.
Family only, my mother-in-law Margaret said sweetly, closing the office door in my face. I'm sure you understand, dear. I stood there in the hallway of Sullivan Industries headquarters, my hands clenched at my sides. Through the frosted glass, I could see the shapes of my husband's family gathering around the conference table for their monthly business meeting, a meeting I wasn't allowed to attend. Despite being married to the CEO's son for 3 years, despite having an MBA from Wharton, despite having doubled the efficiency of their shipping department during my brief stint as a temporary consultant. But of course, none of that mattered, because I wasn't born a Sullivan. Don't take it personally, Kate, my husband Thomas said later that night, loosening his tie as he got ready for bed. It's just tradition. The business stays in the family. I am family, I replied quietly. We're married. He gave me that patronizing smile I'd grown to hate. You know what I mean. Blood family. Besides, you've got your little consulting projects to keep you busy. Little consulting projects. As if the work I did helping struggling companies turn themselves around was somehow less significant than his family's mid-sized shipping company. The quarterly numbers looked rough, I commented, watching his reaction in the mirror. Especially the Asia-Pacific division. His smile faltered slightly. Been peeking at confidential documents again. No, I read the public financial statements, like any interested investor would. I turned to face him. You're losing market share to smaller, more agile competitors. Your infrastructure is outdated and your management structure is. Enough? He cut me off sharply. You don't know everything, Kate. The Sullivans have been running this business for 3 generations. We know what we're doing. I let it drop, but I knew better. Sullivan Industries was hemorrhaging money, locked into outdated practices by a family too proud to admit they needed help. A family that saw me as nothing more than their precious hair's decorative wife. The next morning, I made a decision. I'm starting my own company, I announced over breakfast. Thomas barely looked up from his phone. That's nice, honey. What kind of company? Logistics and supply chain management consulting. That got his attention. You can't be serious. That would be competing with Sullivan Industries. I took a sip of my coffee, enjoying his discomfort. Not directly. I'll be focusing on helping smaller companies optimize their operations. Besides, since I'm not family, what I do shouldn't concern the Sullivans, right? He frowned. Kate. I've already rented an office space, I continued, and I have my first client meeting this afternoon. Does Mother know about this? I smiled. Why would she need to? It's not a family matter. The office I'd rented was small but functional in a modern building across town from Sullivan Industries' aging headquarters. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, using my industry contacts and reputation to set up meetings with potential clients. My first client was Zhang Shipping, a rising star in the Asia-Pacific market. the same market where Sullivan Industries was struggling. Miss Harrison, Mr. Zhang greeted me warmly. Your reputation precedes you. Your work with Atlantic Freight was impressive. Thank you, I said, pulling up my presentation. But please call me Kate. By the end of the meeting, I had my first major contract. Within 6 months, Phoenix Logistics was handling consulting for 3 of the fastest-growing shipping companies in Asia. Our innovative approaches and cutting-edge technology solutions were making waves in the industry. Thomas, meanwhile, grew increasingly distant. He spent more time at Sullivan Industries, attending endless family meetings where they presumably discussed their declining market position. You could help them, you know, my best friend Sophia said over lunch one day. Save the family business. I shook my head. They don't want my help. They made that very clear. I paused, considering, but maybe they'll accept help from someone else. That evening, I registered a new company, Avalon Partners, a private equity firm specializing in acquiring and turning around struggling logistics companies. The ownership was carefully hidden behind layers of shell corporations. As Phoenix Logistics grew, I quietly built Avalon's war chest. Every successful consulting job, every innovative solution we developed, brought me closer to my goal. Then came the news I'd been waiting for. Sullivan Industries is looking for investors, my source at Goldman Sachs informed me. They're hemorrhaging cash. Word is they'll consider any serious offer. I smiled, thinking of all those closed doors, all those family-only meetings. Set up a meeting, but use Avalon's attorneys. I don't want the Sullivans to know who they're really dealing with. 2 weeks later, I sat in my office reviewing Avalon's offer to Sullivan Industries. The terms were generous but came with conditions: complete restructuring of management, modernization of systems, and new blood in key positions. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. Family emergency meeting tonight. Don't wait up. I could imagine the scene, the Sullivan family gathered around their conference table, Margaret at the head, all of them trying to figure out how their precious family empire had come to this. Time to head over, I told my assistant. She looked confused. To Sullivan Industries. I thought the Avalon meeting wasn't until tomorrow. I smiled, gathering my things. It's not, but I have a family meeting to crash. The security guard at Sullivan Industries recognized me, nodding as I walked in. The old building was quiet at this hour, most employees gone home. But light spilled from under the main conference room door, along with the sound of raised voices. I took a deep breath, straightened my jacket, and opened the door. The arguing stopped immediately. Every Sullivan face turned to stare at me. Thomas, his mother Margaret, his brothers Peter and James, their wives, who were apparently family enough to attend, and old Gerald Sullivan himself, patriarch of the clan. Kate. Thomas stood up. What are you doing here? This is a family meeting, yes, I know. I walked to the head of the table, opposite Margaret, and we have a lot to discuss. How dare you? Margaret sputtered. This is a private meeting about Avalon Partners' offer to buy controlling interest in Sullivan Industries. I placed my briefcase on the table. Yes, I know all about that. Thomas frowned. Have you been spying on us? No, I said calmly. I've been waiting for you to finally admit you need help. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table, and now I'm here to offer it. Old Gerald picked up the folder, his hands shaking slightly as he opened it. What is this? That, I smiled, is proof that I own Avalon Partners. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to make an offer to buy Sullivan Industries. The silence that followed was deafening. This is ridiculous, Margaret said, but her voice trembled slightly. You can't possibly have the resources to buy Sullivan Industries. I pulled out another document. Phoenix Logistics made $40 million in profit last year. Avalon Partners manages a $2 billion investment fund. Would you like to see the proof? Peter, Thomas's older brother, snatched the paper from his mother's hands. These numbers can't be real. You're just a what, Peter? A woman? An outsider? Someone not good enough to sit in your precious family meetings? I leaned forward. While you were all busy protecting your traditions, I was building something bigger than Sullivan Industries could ever be. Why are you doing this? Thomas asked quietly. He looked lost, like he was seeing me for the first time. To hurt us? For revenge? I softened my tone slightly. No, Thomas. I'm doing this to save the company you all claim to love so much. I gestured at the financial reports spread across the table. You're 3 months away from bankruptcy. Your Asia Pacific division is bleeding money. Your technology is a decade behind the competition, and your management structure is a mess. Old Gerald cleared his throat. And what exactly do you propose to do about it? All eyes turned to the Sullivan patriarch. In his prime, Gerald had built Sullivan Industries from a small regional player into a national force. But he'd spent the last decade watching his children slowly dismantle his legacy. I propose, I said, to do what I've been trying to do for 3 years. Modernize your operations, streamline your management, and make Sullivan Industries competitive again. By taking control from the family, Margaret's voice dripped with disdain. No, I corrected, by saving it from the family. I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation. This is what Sullivan Industries could be. I've already implemented these systems at 3 of the fastest growing shipping companies in Asia. Your competitors are evolving. You need to evolve too. And if we refuse your offer, James, the youngest Sullivan brother, asked, then I'll watch you go bankrupt, buy the assets at auction for pennies on the dollar, and implement my plans anyway. I met each of their eyes in turn. The only difference is whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Margaret stood up abruptly. This is outrageous. Gerald, you can't seriously be considering. Sit down, Margaret. Old Gerald's voice carried the weight of decades of authority. She sat. He turned to me, his weathered face unreadable. You've built all this in just 3 years? Yes. While my children were busy excluding you from meetings and protecting their turf? Yes. A slow smile spread across his face. The first real smile I'd seen from him in years. Well done, Father, Margaret protested. He held up a hand, silencing her. I've watched you all slowly destroy everything I built because you were too proud to admit when you needed help. Too convinced that being born a Sullivan made you automatically qualified to run a modern shipping company. He looked at me with newfound respect. Meanwhile, the one person who could have helped us was sitting right here, being told she wasn't family enough. Thomas reached for my hand under the table. I pulled away. The offer expires tomorrow at noon, I said, standing up. If you accept, we'll begin restructuring immediately. If you refuse, I shrugged. Well, I hear bankruptcy court is unpleasant this time of year. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and one more thing. If you accept, the first change will be ending the family-only policy for meetings. Merit, not birth, will determine who sits at this table. The next morning, I arrived at my office to find Thomas waiting outside. How long? He asked as I unlocked the door. How long what? How long have you been planning this? I considered the question as I made coffee. I wasn't, at first. I just wanted to build something of my own since your family made it clear I wasn't welcome in their business. I handed him a cup. But when I saw how successful Phoenix Logistics was becoming, while Sullivan Industries kept declining, well, let's just say opportunity knocked. You could have told me. Like you told me about all those family meetings, all those decisions that affected our future. I sat down at my desk. You made your choice, Thomas. You chose your family's traditions over your wife's abilities. Now I've made mine. He stared into his coffee cup. I'm sorry. I know, and I did know. Thomas wasn't a bad person, just someone who'd never learned to stand up to his family. But sorry isn't enough anymore. Things have to change. And if they don't accept your offer, then Phoenix Logistics will continue growing, Avalon Partners will find other investments, and Sullivan Industries will become another cautionary tale about family businesses that couldn't adapt. My phone buzzed. A message from Gerald Sullivan's private number. The board has voted. We accept your terms. When can you start? I showed Thomas the message. Looks like you got a new boss. What about us? He asked quietly. That depends, I replied. Are you ready to see me as more than just your wife? To treat me as an equal partner, not just in marriage but in business? He nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to. The restructuring of Sullivan Industries was exactly as challenging as I'd expected. Margaret resigned rather than work under my leadership. Peter and James initially resisted every change, but when the first quarter results showed a 15% increase in profits, they became more cooperative. Thomas surprised me. Once free from his family's shadow, he proved to be an innovative thinker and a strong ally in modernizing the company. Our marriage, strained for so long by his family's dynamics, began to heal as we worked together as true partners. 1 year later, I sat in a Sullivan Industries conference room, now modernized with state-of-the-art technology, leading the monthly strategy meeting. Around the table sat a mix of Sullivan family members and outside executives, all chosen for their skills rather than their last names. Quarterly results are in, I announced. Asia-Pacific division shows 40% growth. European expansion is ahead of schedule, and our technology platform has been rated top in the industry. Old Gerald, who'd stayed on as an advisor, beamed from his seat near the door. Well done, Kate. You've done what I always hoped my children would do, made Sullivan Industries better than it was before. No, I corrected him gently. We did it together, as a real family business should work. After the meeting, Thomas found me in my office. Mother called today. She's thinking of coming back, maybe doing some consulting work. I smiled. Tell her she's welcome to apply. Through HR, like everyone else. She won't like that. No, I agreed, but she'll respect it. And that's more important. Looking out my office window at the city skyline, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From excluded outsider to company savior, from underestimated wife to respected CEO. You know what the best part is? I said to Thomas. What's that? Now when someone says family business, they're talking about something we built together, not just a name we inherited. He kissed my cheek. Speaking of family, have you thought more about what we discussed? I rested a hand on my still flat stomach, smiling. Yes, and this time, our child will never have to worry about being family enough for anyone.
The photo appeared on my Instagram feed at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. My mother, father, sister, and even my cousins stood smiling on a pristine Hawaiian beach, their faces glowing with carefree joy. The caption read, "Family vacation. Missing no one. Red heart #blessed." I stared at my phone screen, my coffee growing cold beside my laptop where I'd just finished authorizing another $4,000 monthly transfer to my parents' account. 5 years of these transfers. 60 months of supporting them after my father's business went under. Over $240,000 of my hard-earned money, sent without hesitation because family takes care of family. And there they were, on a vacation I knew nothing about with the entire family except me. Let me back up. My name is Emma Sullivan, and 5 years ago I got a desperate call from my mother. My father's construction company had collapsed, taking their savings with it. They were about to lose everything, the house I grew up in, their car, their dignity. Please, Emma. My mother had sobbed into the phone. We don't know who else to turn to. Your sister Megan is just starting her career, she can't help. You're doing so well with your software company. I had just sold my first major security software package to a tech giant, earning my company its first $1 million contract. Of course I would help. They were my parents. The agreement was simple. I would send them $4,000 every month to cover their mortgage, car payments, and basic expenses until they got back on their feet. They would look for work, cut unnecessary spending, and gradually become self-sufficient again. That was the plan anyway. At first they were grateful. My mother would call with tearful thank yous. My father would send awkward texts about job interviews. But as months turned into years, something shifted. The gratitude faded. The job search updates became rarer. Instead of treating my support as temporary help, they began acting like it was their due. Emma dear, could you send next month's payment a bit early? My mother would ask casually, as if requesting a cup of sugar. Your father and I want to upgrade our cable package. Meanwhile, my sister Megan's life was flourishing. She landed a mid-level marketing job, moved into a nice apartment, and became my parents' pride and joy. At family gatherings, they would gush about her latest achievements while barely acknowledging my presence. Megan just got a $2,000 raise. My mother would announce proudly, conveniently forgetting that I had sent them twice that amount the day before. Isn't it wonderful how Megan networks? My father would beam. Always attending business lunches, making connections. Business lunches I was paying for, though they didn't know that. 6 months ago, Megan had called me in tears about her credit card debt. I'd quietly started sending her $1,000 a month too, swearing her to secrecy. Don't tell Mom and Dad, she had pleaded. They think I'm doing so well on my own. I didn't mind really. My company had grown significantly, expanding into cybersecurity consulting for major corporations. Money wasn't an issue. But respect, recognition, basic appreciation, those were apparently too much to ask for. Last Christmas, my mother proudly displayed the expensive purse Megan had given her. Look what your sister managed to save up for. The purse had cost exactly $1,000, the same amount I had sent Megan that month. I kept quiet as always. I paid their bills, attended their dinners, listened to their endless praise of Megan, and told myself it was enough that I could help. I didn't need their validation. Then came the Hawaii photos. More images flooded my social media. My parents and Megan lounging by a resort pool. My cousins Kate and Michael, whom I hadn't seen in months, joining them for sunset dinners. Even my Aunt Susan and Uncle Pete were there, everyone smiling, everyone included. Everyone except me. I scrolled through the photos, each one a fresh punch to the gut. They had planned this, coordinated with the entire family, bought tickets, booked hotels, all while cashing my monthly checks. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Emma dear, is there any chance you could send next month's payment early? We had some unexpected expenses. I looked at my laptop screen where my banking app showed the latest transfer to them. Payment sent. $4,000 status. Pending. Then I looked back at the vacation photos. In one, my father was holding up a cocktail that probably cost more than the groceries I thought I was helping them buy. In another, Megan was showing off a new designer swimsuit, likely purchased with my secret payments to her. I clicked back to my banking app, my finger hovering over the cancel transfer button. 5 years of support. 5 years of being treated like an ATM while they pretended my sister was the successful one. 5 years of being excluded, undervalued, and taken for granted. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Megan. Hey sis, any chance you could increase the monthly help a bit? I saw these amazing apartments. That's when something inside me snapped. I reached for my office phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd use. Mr. Harrison? This is Emma Sullivan. Remember that conversation we had about acquiring struggling construction companies? I think I have one you might be interested in. Mr. Harrison's response was immediate and enthusiastic. My father's failed construction company still existed on paper, held together by my monthly payments. Its contracts, equipment, and most importantly, its valuable downtown land assets were all still there, just dormant. I spent the next hour outlining my plan while looking at more Hawaii photos popping up on Instagram. Megan poolside at the Four Seasons. My parents at a luau. Family dinner at a restaurant where entrees started at $200. My mother called just as I finished my conversation with Mr. Harrison. Emma dear, her voice dripped with practiced sweetness. About that early payment. Of course, Mom, I replied, matching her tone. Just curious, how's Hawaii? Pause. A sharp intake of breath. Then, oh, you saw the photos? It was just a last-minute thing. Megan found some amazing deals. Really? Last-minute bookings at the Four Seasons? During peak season. Another pause. Well, you're always so busy with work. We didn't want to bother you. Right? I said, watching my banking app as Mr. Harrison's first wire transfer hit my account. Because I'm so busy sending you $4,000 every month. Emma, she started, her voice taking on that familiar disappointed tone. Don't be like that. You know we appreciate Dash. I have to go, Mom. Enjoy your vacation. Oh, and don't worry about next month's payment. You won't need it. I hung up before she could respond and made 3 more calls. One to my lawyer, one to my accountant, and one to the private investigator I'd hired last year when I first suspected my family's exploitation went deeper than I knew. The PI's report arrived in my email within the hour, confirming everything. My parents hadn't been looking for work at all. My father had turned down 3 job offers in the past year alone. My mother had started a secret savings account with my emergency payments. And Megan? She'd been lying about her salary. She was making triple what she claimed, but kept asking for money while presenting herself as the family success story. The Hawaii trip had cost $46,000. They'd planned it 6 months ago. My phone kept buzzing with text. Megan, Mom said you're being difficult about the money. Don't be selfish, sis. Dad, your mother's upset. You know how she gets. Let's not make this a big deal. Cousins Kate and Michael, why are you trying to ruin everyone's vacation? So bitter. I turned off my phone and focused on my laptop, where I was logging into the business accounts I'd secretly maintained for my father's company. 5 years of monthly payments hadn't just kept them afloat, They'd preserved the company's assets, contracts, and most importantly, its prime real estate holdings. Holdings that Mr. Harrison's development firm had been trying to acquire for years. At 9 a.m. Hawaii time, 2 p.m. at my office, I pressed send on 4 emails. The first was to my parents, containing bank statements showing every payment I'd made over 5 years, totaling $240,000. Plus $12,000 to Megan that they didn't know about. The second was to Mr. Harrison, finalizing the sale of my father's company, which I technically owned through years of being the sole financier, to his development firm for $5.2 million. The third was to my lawyer, instructing him to proceed with liens on all my family's assets due to defaulted private loans. Yes, those monthly gifts had actually been properly documented loans, thanks to my lawyer's foresight. The fourth was to the family group chat including everyone at that Hawaiian paradise. Check your emails. Vacation's over. I waited, watching the read receipts appear one by one. Then my office phone rang. Emma. My father's voice was frantic. What is this? You sold my company. No, I corrected calmly. I sold my company. Check the paperwork, Dad. Every payment I made gave me equity. Basic business. Isn't that what you always taught me? You can't dash. Already did. Oh, and since I'm calling in all the loans, you should know your accounts have been frozen. Enjoy explaining to the Four Seasons how you'll pay for the rest of your stay. I could hear my mother wailing in the background. Megan was screaming something about her apartment deposit. Emma. My father's voice turned pleading. We're family. Family. I laughed. Family doesn't exclude family from vacations. Family doesn't lie about jobs and salaries. Family doesn't treat one child like an ATM while praising another for achievements bought with the first one's money. We can explain, Dash. No need. Here's what's going to happen. You're all coming home immediately. You'll pay back every loan with interest from your secret savings and Megan's real salary. If you don't, I'll see you in court. You would sue your own family? My own family didn't invite me on vacation while spending my money. Have a safe flight home. I hung up and turned my phone back on. The notifications were overwhelming. Megan, they're kicking us out of the hotel. How could you? Mom, we're stranded. Your father's having chest pains. Dad, the company was all I had left. Cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone who'd enjoyed that luxury vacation on my dime was suddenly very interested in reaching me. I opened my banking app one last time and looked at the pending $4,000 transfer. With one click I canceled it. 5 years of monthly payments ended in an instant. Then I opened my travel app and booked a ticket to Hawaii. A different island, a different resort. A vacation where I wouldn't have to pretend to be less successful than I was. Where I wouldn't have to watch my sister take credit for my financial support. Where I could finally stop being the family ATM and start being myself. My assistant knocked on my door. Miss Sullivan? Your family's been calling the office non-stop. Take messages, I said, closing my laptop. I'm going on vacation. Should I tell them where? I smiled, thinking of all those Instagram photos. No need. They can check my social media. That evening, as I packed for my trip, my mother sent one last text. How could you do this to your family? I replied with a photo, a screenshot of their Hawaii group picture with the caption, missing no one. Below it I wrote, how could you do this to your daughter? Then I blocked them all and headed to the airport. Sometimes the biggest gift you can give yourself is the courage to stop giving to those who don't appreciate you. Sometimes the hardest business decision is realizing that family can be your worst investment. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just canceling payments. It's canceling the entire relationship that made those payments necessary. As my plane took off, I opened my laptop to find an email from Mr. Harrison. The development plans for my father's former company would create hundreds of jobs and revitalize a struggling neighborhood. In the end, my family's betrayal would help an entire community. I ordered a champagne and looked out the window, smiling. Let them scramble to pay their hotel bill. Let them feel what it's like to not be able to rely on me. Let them finally understand that success isn't about taking advantage of family. It's about being honest, grateful, and inclusive. My phone buzzed one last time before I put it on airplane mode. A notification from my bank. Recurring payment canceled successfully. 5 years of being the family ATM ended by one family vacation I wasn't invited to. Sometimes the best trips are the ones that take you away from toxic relationships, even if those relationships are with your own family. I sat back, watching the clouds drift by, finally free from the weight of unappreciated sacrifice. Somewhere over the Pacific, my family was frantically booking economy flights home. But me? I was flying first class to a future where I no longer had to diminish my success to make others comfortable. After all, if they could afford a luxury vacation with my money, I could certainly afford one with theirs. The funeral reception was still happening downstairs when Uncle Derek convened the estate meeting in Grandma's dining room. 14 family members crammed around the table where we'd eaten Thanksgiving dinner 2 months earlier. The potato casserole dishes were barely washed. "Let's be efficient about this," Derek said, spreading papers across the table. "Mom's assets need to be inventoried and distributed per her will. Everything divided equally among her 4 children." I was there because Mom, Derek's sister, had asked me to attend. "Just to observe," she'd said. I sat in the corner, quiet, while Derek listed properties. The main house, the rental duplex on Forest Street, the half-acre lot by the high school. Then he said it. "And the lake house at 2847 Waterstone Drive. Appraised value approximately $425,000. Probably the most valuable single asset." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. My cousin Jennifer spoke first. "I want the lake house. I've got 3 kids, they'd actually use it." "We've been going there for family reunions," Cousin Mark countered. "It should stay in the family, not go to just one person." "We could sell it and split the proceeds," Aunt Patricia suggested. 4 ways. Over $100,000 each. I set my cup down carefully. "That's my house." The room went silent. Then Derek laughed. "Honey, no. That's Grandma's lake house. Has been for 40 years. It was Grandma's lake house. I bought it from her 6 years ago. It's mine." You could have heard a pin drop. Then everyone started talking at once. "That's impossible. Grandma would never sell. We have family memories there." Derek held up his hand. "Natalie, I understand you might be confused, but I have Grandma's complete asset list from her attorney. The lake house is listed right here." He tapped the document. "Then her attorney made a mistake," I said quietly. "I have the deed. Recorded with the county in April 2019. I bought it for $285,000. I have 6 years of mortgage statements, property tax receipts, and homeowner's insurance bills. All in my name." My mother was staring at me. "You bought Grandma's lake house? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because of this," I said, gesturing at the table. "Because I knew what would happen." Uncle Derek's face had gone red. "This is ridiculous. We're talking about family property." "No," I interrupted. "We're talking about MY property that you just tried to add to an estate inventory without even checking the deed. The thing is, I'd known this would happen eventually. Not the specifics but the shape of it. 6 years ago Grandma had called me. She was 81, sharp as ever but realistic. 'I need to downsize,' she'd said. 'The lake house is too much. Your uncles want me to keep it for family purposes, but I pay $8,000 a year in taxes and insurance on a place I visit twice a summer. It's not practical. What do you want to do?' 'Sell it. But if I sell it on the open market, your Uncle Derek will lose his mind. He thinks it's his retirement plan somehow. So I want to offer it to you first. Below market value. You pay me what I need to be comfortable, I avoid the family drama, you get a property you actually visit.' I'd scraped together the down payment. Got a mortgage for the rest. We'd handled everything through attorneys, kept it quiet, changed nothing about how the family used it. Grandma still had her key. Family reunions continued. I just stopped mentioning that I was paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the repairs. For 6 years I'd maintained the house while they'd assumed it was still Grandma's. When the dock needed replacing last summer, $12,000, I'd paid it. When the roof was damaged in a storm, $8,500, I'd handled it. When the septic system failed, $15,000, I'd covered it. They'd used it for their vacations, their fishing trips, their anniversary weekends. Never asked who paid the utilities. Never wondered about the upkeep. Derek was still sputtering. Even if this is true, which I doubt, that property has been in our family for decades. Grandma shouldn't have sold it to you privately. That's not fair to everyone else. She could sell her property to whoever she wanted, I said. I paid fair market value. Everything was legal. And I've been maintaining it at my own expense while you all have been using it for free. Using it for free? Jennifer's voice pitched high. It's a family house. It's my house that I've generously allowed family to use. Aunt Patricia leaned forward. Natalie, be reasonable. Your grandmother clearly intended for that property to benefit everyone. Just because you took advantage of her when she was elderly. I took advantage? My voice stayed level, but something sharp entered it. I bought a property she wanted to sell. I've paid every expense for 6 years. I've never charged any of you rent for the weeks you've stayed there. And now you're trying to liquidate my asset as part of an estate that doesn't include it. My mother finally spoke. Natalie, honey, maybe we should all calm down and look at this reasonably. The family memories in that house are still there, I finished. I haven't changed anything. Haven't kicked anyone out. Haven't sold it. I just own it. Legally. Completely. And it's not part of this estate. Derek stood up. We'll see about that. I'm calling Grandma's attorney right now. Good, I said. Ask him to pull the deed from the county records. While you're at it, ask him why he included a property in the estate inventory without verifying current ownership. He left the room, phone already to his ear. The remaining family members stared at me like I'd revealed I was secretly a criminal. The ghost ledger wrote itself while I sat there. 6 years of family gatherings where I'd smiled while they planned their lake house futures. Cost, authentic presence at family events. Every repair I'd paid for while they assumed the family would handle it. Cost, $47,000 in maintenance they never acknowledged. Every time Derek had said, when I inherit the lake house. Cost, the ability to correct him without seeming greedy. Every time someone had criticized how I'd arranged the furniture or suggested improvements. Cost, respect for my property decisions. Every Christmas when they'd discussed estate planning and I'd stayed silent. Cost, the chance to set boundaries before crisis. The emotional accounting was precise. They'd borrowed against a future inheritance that didn't exist. They'd spent emotional currency planning lives in a house that wasn't theirs. And I'd let them because correcting them meant this scene, this moment, this fracture. Derek returned 20 minutes later. His face was carefully blank. The attorney confirms that the property at Waterstone Drive was sold in 2019. To Natalie. It's not part of the estate. How much did you pay Grandma? Jennifer demanded. Because if you got some sweetheart deal. $285,000, I said. 15% below market value at the time, which was fair for a private family sale. Current market value is about $425,000, which means I've built $140,000 in equity through normal appreciation and the improvements I've paid for. This is unbelievable, Mark said. You've been lying to us for 6 years. I haven't lied about anything. Nobody ever asked who owned it. You all assumed. Aunt Patricia's voice went cold. I think it's clear what needs to happen. Natalie, the right thing to do is to put that property into the estate. Honor your grandmother's memory. Honor this family. The right thing, I repeated slowly, would have been for any of you to ask me about property ownership before adding my house to your distribution plans. The right thing would have been to verify the estate inventory before this meeting. The right thing would have been to not assume you had rights to something you never bothered to confirm. So that's it. Jennifer's voice cracked. You're just going to keep it? What about family traditions? What about the kids? The kids are welcome to visit. You're all welcome to visit. Same as before. The only thing that's changed is now you know who's been paying for the privilege. Derek tried one more angle. We could contest this. Undue influence. Grandma was elderly. Grandma was 81, completely mentally competent, represented by her own attorney, and made a sound financial decision to sell a property she no longer needed, I said. I have the cognitive assessment from her doctor dated 2 weeks before the sale. I have emails showing she initiated the conversation. I have the attorney's notes confirming she understood every aspect of the transaction. Contest it if you want. Waste your inheritance on legal fees. The deed will still say my name. The probate process moved forward without the lake house. The actual estate, worth about $380,000 after debts, was divided 4 ways. My mother received $95,000. So did Derek, Patricia, and Robert. What they didn't receive was the lake house they'd been mentally spending for years. Derek stopped speaking to me entirely. Patricia sent a long email about betrayal and family values. Jennifer unfriended me on social media. Mark took a more practical approach and simply asked if he could still book the house for his anniversary. I said yes. 6 months after probate closed, I refinanced the lake house. Better rate, lower payment. The bank appraiser valued it at $438,000. The equity was now $153,000. All mine. I changed exactly one thing about the property. I installed a small plaque by the front door. Waterstone House. Private property. Established 2019. Last weekend I was there alone. Sat on the dock at sunset with a glass of wine. No family reunion. No cousins' kids running through. No Uncle Derek calculating theoretical futures. Just me, the water, and the quiet satisfaction of ownership. They'd wanted the lake house as inheritance. Something given, something owed, something cosmically theirs by virtue of being family. Instead, they got a lesson in property law and the difference between assumption and reality. I built something they thought they'd receive. They planned around something they never had. And when the probate court discovered the truth, their inheritance dispute turned into their education on the very simple principle that wanting something doesn't make it yours. The lake is still there. The house is still there. The memories are still there. But the deed has my name on it. And that's the only line that matters.